Greetings and welcome to the Leader Show courtesy of the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya. My name is Lugalia Kelvin and I'll be hosting this show for today. Today we'll be talking about church leadership and governance. And to just help us break down this topic is a very good friend of mine, Pastor Moses Giri.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Asante. Thank you, Kevin.
Yes.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Yes.
Karibu sana. Maybe you just start by telling us who you are. I understand you wear a number of hats. So just tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah. My name is Moses Giri, and I serve at ICC as one of the pastors there, and also in the Kenya Assemblies of God, and under the Archbishop Philip Kitoto and Reverend Mongai. And at ICC, of course, Bishop Gibson and Uvate, and I serve in a couple of offices. And I'm also based on Sundays at ICC Buruburu, where I'm the resident pastor there. And married to one beautiful woman, a lady who is such an amazing lady in my life. And yeah, we have 4 kids, 3 girls, 1 boy. And God has been faithful to us in all, and I also serve in the EAK as well, in the Youth Commission as the chairman, recently just appointed, and we bless the Lord, and so many other things we do. But I think those ones are enough.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Karibu sana. And so when we talk about church leadership and governance,
yes,
what is leadership? What is governance?
Kevin, this topic is one of the hardest to tackle, because you begin to think about so many things that go through people's minds when it comes to leadership. So many leaders with less leadership. We're even overrepresented.
Yes.
But we lack leadership. And so the term leader itself is a very heavy word, because you guide, you protect, and you show direction. Now, in the context of the life we live in, many of us don't even understand who a leader is before we even go to leadership. Because again, you talk about the philosophy of a leader when you tackle leadership. But who is a leader? A leader, you talk about leadership, you mention the term influence. Of course, we've seen people who have influenced people negatively and they go to war and stuff. But regardless, they have led others into so many things that are not good. But we've also seen people who have done good in leadership, people who have actually brought in policies and actions and affairs that are really very, very, very good to actually the growth of a human being. So a leader is someone who influences. And in this case, my prayer is that they influence positively.
Yeah.
And on the other side,
you can influence negatively.
So you can lead, you can also influence negatively. Now, a leader it's very funny, because you are present as a leader or absent, you are leading. So when a leader is silent, he's also still leading. When he's talking, he's still leading. So you do not want to be in a space where you have people who do not know where they are going. And so you as a leader, we need to understand, we lead in presence and in absence, so that everybody understands, or rather the direction and the vision you really want to achieve comes to pass. The second thing is leadership, of course, the philosophy of influence. You talk about so many things. One of the things that actually affects, now that you mentioned church leadership, the Church of Christ honestly has been going through a lot of spaces that we will talk about in a few. But it's good to say and probably break down what John C. Maxwell explains leadership to be. He calls it influence, but leadership, again, we are misinformed of what it is. Because the moment you are in a position which we call leadership, and you are selfish, you've lost it. We have been taught, and I remember growing up being told, the leader leads from the top, which is true. because you have to be the person. You are sitting on a hill and everyone has to see you. But with life and how things have gone, generations after generation have begun to redefine what leadership is. And so this pyramid, actually, the leader has come from the top, and now this pyramid is upside down, where the leader now handles a lot on his plate and does not sit like the way it was before, prior, where the top is, the leader is at the top and he's stepping on people. That is not leadership. And so John C. Maxwell says that the least level of leadership is the position leadership. If you're in a position, probably a title, if you don't address someone with a title, they get offended.
Yes. If
you meet such a person,
yes,
you're dealing with a positional leader, which is the least of the leadership spectrum that there is. And this level says that people follow you because they have to. Because if they don't follow you, they'll be fired. You'll be offended, and things will, come from being worse to becoming a dilemma. The second level that John C. Maxwell talks about is the level of permission. People follow you because they want to. Because of your leadership traits, because of your behavior, because of what you stand for, because of who you are. Those are the things. They follow you because you are relational. You relate with them. You understand their problems. You understand what they are going through. You understand the issues that they are facing. And so you're able to articulate and actually help them out. The third tie, of course, he says, is the production leadership level, which again, people follow you because of what you have done in an organization. Probably you've been there for a few years. Probably you've done that for a couple of years. You have gained mileage. I think I would use that term. And people now know you. They have seen what you can do, and now they follow you and they want to be part of that change. Then the fourth tie, John C. Maxwell talks about people development. People follow you there because of what you have done to them or for them. I think the word is for them. So then it's easier for them to relate with you because they are where they are, because you develop them. You are involved with the development. Probably you are a youth pastor when you're growing up, a teens pastor. Now you are in a space where in the marketplace, the people who are there are the people you pastored when you are growing up and in pastoral space. But the highest of them all, he says, is the level of pinnacle. It's the pinnacle level.
Yes.
Where people follow you because of who you are and what you represent. There are people who will come right now that, GLS is happening, and we have great leaders who are speakers in this conference. And again, we have this World Mission Congress coming up next week here for the Assemblies of God at Sitam Valley Road. And so the speakers who are coming there, people would want to know them. They are well known. We can relate to them of what they have done and what they stand for. And so you realize someone actually coming for a meeting because I know this person. I have seen what they have done. I know who they are. I know what they stand for. And those are levels, categories of leadership.
Nice.
Now let's come to a space where we bring now the church, because that's probably one of our conversations today. I personally, by God's grace, I've been a senior pastor for 3 times.
No.
And I'm currently not pastoring any church. But I have learned the art of leadership, and I'm still a student there. Because you can't outdo it. You keep learning over and over again. Now, if you are a leader, a church pastor, or a leader somewhere you're serving, if people don't address you with your title,
it becomes a problem.
It becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Then you're dealing with again, as we said, a positional leader or someone who is insecure in his leadership.
Yeah.
I grew up under leaders who gave me, and this is specifically, I would say, the former late Bishop of KG, Bishop Giri, and Pastor M, the senior pastor of Mavuno Church. And let me tell you, those guys broke me to bits. Because I thought I knew. I thought I was there. I thought I had arrived. Until the time where I think I was doing my internship. And the first thing I did was to sharpen pencils. And I realized I'm here to change the world. What do you mean sharpen pencils? And it just changed everything about me. Because earlier, probably, if someone never addressed me the title, I was offended. You know, don't you know who I am moment? Don't you know who you are talking to? Kevin, the time you'll find yourself as a leader, you have to reintroduce yourself to someone else. Then you realize you've lost it.
True. And that brings in the different styles of leadership.
Exactly.
Even in church,
yes.
and in different places.
Yes.
And probably, you see, for, I don't know if there is a common leadership style in our churches that you will want to share with us. And how does that even affect the people that are being led? That includes the staff that is in the church, the congregation, and everyone will be associating with that church.
Yes.
How does the leadership style affect the people who are following the leader?
Let me start here, and probably it will make sense when I finish.
Yes.
Isaac loved his children. And you talk about Esau and Jacob. And the Bible says that Isaac had a taste of wild meat. The Bible is categorical. It says he had a taste. Every leader in this life and the person we are serving under has what they prefer and what they think and what they want and what they desire. Because every leader, you have to understand on how to lead upwards. What that means is every person serving under someone has to understand how to lead upwards. You know, sometimes when someone is a deputy and is an assistant, when you tell them they're a leader, they tell me, no, I'm not the leader. The leader is Mr. So-and-so. But they forget that in their own capacity, they are leaders. And so one of the things we lack is leading upwards becomes a problem. We don't know how to lead upwards. And leaders, probably those in those positions, some of them probably struggle how to lead downwards. And so it is a space where you connect for both of them. If then there is no cohesion, you find these leaders fighting. And I don't want to go into conversations of this nation at the moment. But because you can actually tell where the problem is. And when one leader tried to solve the other and the deputy is trying to solve the other, you realize you're in a quagmire of a space of who is the leader here, what is happening, and you lose the whole touch of leadership. Now, when I learned this, I would say this, that every leader has a preference. We need to learn our leaders. We don't take time to learn our leaders. Probably the leader I served, and I have been led by so many, and when I say being led is that I followed a leader somewhere. I followed somebody. And I realized that all of them have different tastes. All of them have what they break down to be leadership. All of them, they receive something differently. One of the things which is major, and I feel like people don't really don't understand the concept, is I began to learn how to honor my leaders. Because I realized when I buy a book and I take to a leader, probably if he's not secure in himself, probably this guy thinks I'm illiterate in this space of finances. And then he went forth to buy me a book to bring to me for me to be literate and educated. That's not the concept. When you learn your leader, different styles of leadership you have spoken. There are those who are transformative. There are those who are moral. There are those who are social. There are those who are... And what does that mean for them? If you're a leader who feels like caring for people and going out and serving people, that's for them, that's true leadership. Then learn his taste, understand that taste, and you realize for him, he will feel honored and understand that you actually know his heart and what you want to do. And so if we miss that point or that space, or if we have a misconcept of, I think my leader wants this is what, one of the things I've done is every time I am serving under a leader, I will always request to have coffee with them. Because I want to hear their heart. I want to understand. I want to know what, again, honor means to them. Because for a leader, honor honors the leadership and they feel that you actually honor them. So, for example, if I go to a coffee with my boss, and then I'll ask, in as much as I know, I'll ask, what do you think about something and something? What do you think about point 1 and 2? What do you think about the situation? And then once I get what he thinks about the situation, once I get what he has in his heart about the situation, then I'm able to implement it. If I bring a King Saul and a David space, and I think that's one of the biggest things. One of the things I talk about King David is King David learned King Saul. He spent time with him. And you remember he said, whoever kills Goliath, I'll give my daughter Michal as his wife.
Yes.
And so I understand David went time to ask his wife, how is dad? How is my father-in-law? What does he prefer? What is leadership to him? What is, And in as much as David had so many opportunities to take over leadership, he didn't do it.
Yeah.
He honored that man by staying away from him. In fact, the guy who came to brag that he had killed King Saul, David dealt with him, perpendicularly and horizontally, the way he would deal with any other person. And so you have leadership, or rather you have a leader who needs to know who he is, who needs to lead upwards, who needs to lead downwards, and in the spaces we are. So regardless of the position we serve, I have no problem with titles. What matters in a leader is probably even the vision where they're going. Kevin, I served under one of the pastors, and I sat down with him. And one of the things that shocked me is over the years, is when I asked him about what's the vision, where are we headed to? And the most unfortunate thing is he didn't have an answer. And I knew I have been here for years, and really we do not know where we're going, and probably that's why we're having a lot of conflict.
Yes, because that's the person you're following.
Because that's the person I'm following. And so every leader, again, needs to understand that they have different tastes and styles on how they do their things. But it is also a very good space to meet your team and tell them, honor, this is what honor means to me. Because honor will mean something else to someone else. If I bring you again a book, as I said, some will feel insecure because you think I'm illiterate. Some will say, oh, thank you so much. This is really good. I'll read it and I'll get the concept. And when someone said that everything rises and falls with leadership, again, this is Joseph Maxwell, he was very right. Because then you control the narrative, you control direction, you control the organization, you control where you're headed to. And when other leaders, let me use the term leaders and not followers, because everybody is a leader in his own capacity. When the leaders who are following a leader get to exit an organization or where they are going, again, there is this concept of people don't quit organizations, they quit leaders.
Yes, true, very true.
Yes.
And even we'll be talking about that aspect of transition.
Yes.
For leaders and bringing in the new blood even into leadership.
Yeah.
But just on something that you have started talking about, are there biblical foundations when it comes to church leadership and governance? And also, what are the examples that you can even emulate from the Bible when it comes to leadership in the spaces that God has put us in?
Oh, yes. There are, quite many. And I feel like the marketplace and what we do now, we've borrowed all those concepts from God's word. Please understand that man did not invent leadership. We have one leader who is God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And God himself is administrative. Everybody in heaven has work to do. And they do it to the level best of the assignment. And the reason why I say that is because the Son who came and died on the cross for us kept referring to his Father as Abba Father. and I'm not good, only the Father is. And you would see honor in that. You'd see who he is. Regardless of his Father sending his Son to die for us, he knew the will and trusted that space, that is a space he needs to go. You're talking about Moses and Joshua, the transition space again, which will come to discuss further. But you look at them and you see someone who understood that I'm not here to stay. And Moses began to raise Joshua to take over. In fact, it got to a point where now God had told him, now this is where you're going to stop. You'll see the land, but you won't go there, because this is a generation issue again, and your time has come to an end.
Yes,
you see. So you look at again at Eli and Samuel, Prophet Samuel. God is raising Samuel, and there's Eli there who is really needs to walk with him. And the book of Kings and Chronicles talks about kings who did good before the Lord. There are those who did evil before the Lord. There are those who King Solomon built a temple and stuff like those. But you also look at people who also didn't succeed in the book of Judges, who would come and they would lead for some time, and they lead people doing evil in the eyes of God. And so there are all these examples biblically and biblical foundations we can learn from in terms of leadership. And so church leadership has to base its leadership on God's word. But again, that becomes a problem, because the biggest hurdle the church has to jump is leadership. That has caused problems ever since the Pentecost in the book of Acts. Is who leads where, who takes where, who is bishop, who is not bishop, who is reverend, who is not reverend. Why are you calling him reverend and he's not a reverend, he's a pastor? So people get confused and say, at the end of the day, I think you're doing one of the big things. And those denominational requirements that guide us day by day in terms of honor and what office you serve in, which are good things. But I feel like the outwardness of just being a leader has taken over the inwardness in us, where Christ would be asked by the Pharisees and Caiaphas, the chief priest and the high priest, questions, and he say, "Are you the Son of God?" And he says, "Yes, I am." And if you watch the Passion, you see where, read the scriptures and watch the movie, you see where Caiaphas and the guys are so angry with Jesus. Mm-hmm. Because how can you use the title on yourself which you have not been given? And so when the church gets to that space, then Kevin, we have a problem. And that problem is actually what we're seeing now, even in the Gen Z conversations, where they're saying they're leaderless. Because they have learned leaders don't, keep their word. Mm-hmm. Leaders are supposed to keep their words. They should do that, but they don't. Whatever is written in the Bible, they are seeing pastors do different things. They are seeing now it's no longer about care. It's not about reaching out to the lost. It's not about the interest of the community. Yeah. When they see elected leaders not follow the constitution, then they say, now this one we are going to take it over directly from where we stand, because you have not really met the threshold of being a leader as defined in the Constitution. And right now we have our very own deputy facing impeachment charges, because again, what is the biggest issue? Leadership. So leadership is massive. It's in and out of the organization. It's the core heart of the organization. It's the core heart of the person who leads. So either you're in a position of leadership, or you're in the permission level, or production level, or whichever level you are, then you should understand that people require a lot from you. If, regardless of the style that you use to guide and to lead your people, then people require a lot from you. And so we need to understand that perspective when it comes to church leadership.
Nice. Yeah. Regardless of where you are leading. And so you've been in different leadership levels. You've been a senior pastor for 3 churches. Yeah. And you are now the chair of the EAK Commission.
Yes.
Youth Commission.
Yeah.
You also run an organization. And so what are the challenges that you faced in these different leadership positions that seem to cut across the board? Challenges that will relate easily with any person who is in leadership. And how did you navigate these challenges?
The biggest challenge, Kevin, I can tell you is running against yourself. How do I put that in simple terms? You are the limit and you are the minimum and the maximum. If I'd put it, I'm just looking for best words to put this. If you don't challenge yourself to be a leader who people relate to or relate with, then you've lost it. The day people will stop opening their hearts to you and telling them, how is my wife? My wife is doing good. My kids are doing good. My family is good, doing good. The moment as a leader you say hello to someone and ask, how are you doing? They tell you, I'm fine. And nothing more. Then you realize you haven't really cracked the heart of your people.
Yeah.
And then you realize there's a gap. And so what you need to do is, the biggest challenge I myself have come across is, people see you as very perfect when you're leading in that space. And some even fear to approach you, and even how people say hi to you, they're humble, they want to honor you. You have to be someone who can leave your throne of leadership, of privilege, of honor, and you go spend time at the level where you feel now they relate with you. One of my biggest ways of leadership is that one. I leave my position. Instead of calling people to where I am, I will go to where they are. And that one for me was the biggest challenge that I had to overcome. Because most of the time we sit in an office, call people in an office, and you want to have a family conversation in the office. They're already threatened. They're already tensed because they're wondering why you call them. What did I do wrong? Is there anything you want to tell me? Get away with this thing of asking me how I'm doing. Get straight to it. Get direct with me. Why am I in this office? And you realize the best conversation as a leader that I myself have are corridor conversations.
Yeah.
Because you didn't expect to meet me, and once we meet, is how your family, how you're doing, how's life, and that's where people get to know and to learn people and to connect with people. Those are the spaces where I've come to learn in terms of a leader that I have come to become. And I'm also, a student in leadership. I'm still learning myself. The challenge that is the second one that I've come to learn is you need to know when to exit. Irregardless of how good you are, irregardless of how people love you, regardless of how they want you to stay there forever. Some of you, live forever. You can't live forever, but you understand what they mean, isn't it?
Yes.
They honor you and they love you and they care for you. For all those churches, Kevin, I have handed them over to people that I myself felt I trusted them, I prayed for them, and I groomed them for that. And walking away was not easy, but I knew my time had come. That regardless of how good I am of a dancer, I need to know when to exit the stage. And once you do that, a lot of things happen, and probably that's another level of conversation. But you leave at least knowing very well that you have actually raised someone else to come and step in for you. And when you hand over, you don't go below them. You actually elevated, because now you have become a father.
Yes.
They'll reach out to you in case there is any question that they need to do. And so those are two challenges I would say. One, leave your throne, go to the people, relate with them, be a relational leader. The second one is the succession plan, knowing when to leave. It's difficult, but it's time. Trusting the people you have raised.
Wow. Knowing when to leave the stage.
Knowing when to exit.
Yes, even a good dancer knows when to leave the stage.
Yes.
And so in churches, we have different leadership capacities. We have elders, we have churches that has got deacons, and then we have the pastoral, and then we have the church ministry leaders. And so what is the role of all these people when it comes to leadership, especially on the elders and the deacons in the different churches?
I think that's as the word says, of course, it says that the one who desires an office of a bishop is also, it's a trustworthy task and a noble task. And I would say we have broken that down into a culture space where a pastor handles different roles, and then you also have an elder handling different roles. in that category. Now, where I sit, I'd say I surrounded myself, and I'm talking this from my own personal space. I surrounded myself with people, or rather elders, when I served as a senior pastor. I surround myself with people who would elevate me and grow me. So not someone who can't call me pastor and say, Pasi, there's something we're doing here, and this is my feedback. This is what I think. And if that is the elder around you or people around you, then you yourself as a minister, you grow. But the day that elder team, the team that leads you look over church and lead and direct a church, the moment they become ceremonial where they can't approach you, then you realize you have become a monarch in yourself. You have become something else. Because nobody can approach you and tell you things are not going right. Nobody can actually tell you the ground is saying this is the feeling on the ground. Nobody will come approach you and say, Pastor, I think we're spending much on activities. We need to, save that which the Lord has given us. I feel like we need to partner with that church. You surround yourself as a minister with elders that are ordained of God, blessed of God, and they're capable men who actually have gone through something you'd say they will grow you as a person and as a pastor. The day you can never share as a pastor about your life, about your children, about the relationship between you and your wife on that board, then you have lost trust with that board. And so the work again of a pastor, of course, is to oversee and to lead and to guide. And the work of the elders again is to support you. Aaron and I think it was her holding Moses' hands so that Joshua would win against the Amalekites. And so you are seated there and the elders are holding top of your hands up so that you again become victorious at the end of the day. But Kevin, what we've opted to do is again misconcept the work of a pastor and elders. The moment you see pastors and elders fighting, again, one of them is insecure, and probably you know who that is. And number two, probably the choosing of the elders was not well done. Or you brought them there for a reason. Now, equate this in heaven. God is there, the Father seated, of course, with 4 living creatures, the 7 spirits of God. And then the Revelation chapter 4 says that he's surrounded by 24 elders. The work of elders there, they signify presence. They signify authority. They signify honor around the throne. It says, this is just not any ordinary throne. This is just not any ordinary job. This is not just any other ordinary space. But the leader here, ordained of God, chosen of God, we are here to support him because he is the one ordained of God for such a moment.
Yes.
And you realize the day you transition from that seat, people forget you the following day. Then they start honoring the pastor who has come there.
True.
Because it is the office that they honor. And that's a very big task for us to know that needs to be very clear when it comes to the pastor and the elders and the leadership team. The thing I'd say is, and I love my Bishop Gibson, he loves to say this, and I've learned it's true. Don't rush people into leadership. Give them tasks, but don't rush them into leadership. Don't give them positions.
I'd like us to pause there.
Yes.
And take a short break.
All right.
So that when we come back, we pick from don't rush people into leadership.
Yes.
Yes. So allow us to take a short break. See you at the other end. Thank you.
I've actually been trying to find a balance. It's been really tough and hectic, but everyone says once you get a hang of it, becomes better. And I don't know, but I'm hoping to find a balance soon because it's really been hectic. But you've been in the job industry for a long time, so I think you would know better. Single.
Huh? What time is it? I need to catch up on Leadership Forum. Do they have a radio here? Never mind. I brought my own.
No way. You can't be serious. Wait, why do you have a radio and you can just catch up with the shows on Hope FM podcasts?
Really? Even Meet of the One?
Yeah. I mean, you can find them on whatever platform, name it. AfriPods, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it.
But I'm not subscribed on any of them.
So no worries. You can just check out the latest episodes on hopemediakenya.org.
You can now listen to select Hope FM programs on your favorite podcast streaming platform or directly on our website, www.hopemediakenya.org. Listen and live.
Welcome back. This is the Leader Show, and we are talking about church leadership and governance. And before we went on a break, Pastor Moses was just finishing on a thought.
Yes.
Maybe if you could finish on that thought before we go to the next question.
Yeah, sure, for sure. I refer to the space where you don't trust people into leadership because we begin to make positions become targets for people to begin to compete for. And the moment they start that concept, the organization becomes competitive, negatively influencing jobs, objectives, goals. And with that one, you realize that you don't get people to subscribe or to follow or follow the vision. They begin to follow positions. And when you look at an organization again, you need to actually talk more about the vision and where people are going and the mission, even more than the leader himself. Because if all attention focuses on the leader, it means that the day he will exit with everything that organization has lived for. So if you have something, a goal, an objective, a vision and a mission, it has to live beyond the leader, And if that is not the concept, Kevin, you realize we enter into these fights that are necessary. And I feel like more leaders can actually settle such kind of disputes in a very simple way. One is apologizing and say, I'm sorry, I've done this, I've messed up. We've had these great preachers. One day, let me not mention who he is, but he came on to church on a Sunday and said, I'm sorry, everything I've ever taught you, go burn the books that I've ever told you, written and I've ever told you to buy and stuff. And you realize all my life I've been following this guy, and all of a sudden now he's a different guy. You have leaders who have fallen by grace. So you're talking about church leaders who have been caught into spaces of sex immorality and stuff. How do you again make up that which has been lost? So leadership itself is just a very complex conversation, but it can be broken down into chewable bites where people can understand that this is how it flows. Understanding the concept, founding the organization, and always the leader. The one people praise and they tell you, oh, you've done well, Bishop. Always take them to the vision. Direct them to the vision. Direct them to the vision. Yes, when they appreciate you as a pastor, yes, when they appreciate you as a senior pastor, that's fine. There's no problem with that. But the day you will own the throne and say like what Moses said, for how long will we, in the book of Numbers, and God was telling him to, tell the Israelites, go speak to the rock, it will give you water. But Moses went and actually struck, and the statements that changed everything in that conversation is, for how long will we? Referring to himself and God. And so the moment he got into that space, actually, I think God got very angry with him. I say, Moses, this is not the space for you. And one of the things actually, that caused him not to see the promised land is because God was very angry with him about it. I said, now this one, in fact, the enemy was fighting for his body after he died, because we know what he wanted to do. These guys had come from Egypt, they had worshipped idols, and we don't know what the devil would have done. Probably cut Moses into pieces, everybody to carry a finger, everybody to carry a hand, and just go back to the idolatry space of it, because the things God did through Moses were amazing. And so leadership is very foundational. It's very sensitive, but also a very good way of leading.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are talking about do not rush leaders into leadership.
Yeah.
Do not rush people into leadership. And so there is a place of young people in leadership. How will you define that context, and how do you even bring them into leadership without rushing them, and give them positions that they will feel part of an organization, part of the church, part of the whichever institution that it is? And so how do you bring young people into positions of leadership?
I think it's good we understand, as a young man, for me, I once desired to be great. Let me use the term great. In fact, when I was in high school, my passion was I want to be rich and famous. And when God called me to ministry, I didn't understand what he was calling me into. When we talk about young people being into leadership, number one, it is possible, and that should be the trend.
Yeah.
However, and I'm talking this from a young man's perspective, however, I myself, my life, what I desired to have and to do, today, I see the reason why my father said no to some things. I see the reason why my leaders said no to some things. I see the reason why even my bishops, until today, say no to some things. I have seen them. Because when I desire to be this man who is, trotting around the world, wanting to be everywhere, when I was a young man, those things were not there. And when God gives you what really you want at that very age where you are so young and tender, you have not been raised, or you have not grown up or built pillars to be able to handle 5 floors, 6 floors, 7 floors. Because the only way to determine how far that house goes is the foundation. We know that is, simple principles. But we do not have the pillars
to
hold what we're asking for. Let me give you an example. I once approached my leader and I said, I want to be like you. I think by then I was 26 years old. I want to be like you. I want to go all over the world like you do. I want to handle these responsibilities like you do. I want to be this person who is given so, many responsibilities. I want to be where, people are. I want to handle more. I feel like I can do more. And I had this energy in me that told me, this is the time. And I remember by then my wife and I had, I think we had our firstborn. Our firstborn was like 5 years or so. And then our second born, I think we had just gotten our second born. And guess what he told me? He said, Moses, these things will come. But for now, be a father to your children. Love them. Care for them. Be a dad. Be there for them because they have not yet come. Kevin, I cannot tell you now how I intentionally plan to spend time with my family. And I have to say no to some things. Because what I was asking for
has now come.
Has come. And, it came probably at, from I think 2016, just, life opened up and opportunities began to come and open doors. And I have had intentionally to stay back to spend time with my children. Because you can get so busy and you forget the sole purpose to even why you are, you're living in that same purpose. Now, God does not give you these things to take you away from what he tells you that, you need to intend and be a father and be a mother. And that's a conversation actually we were talking with my wife when we were coming here and saying, just look how God has planned things, you know. That when the young are asking for things to come, they don't come. But when they get to a point where they don't want the things to come, then the things come.
Yeah.
So we're asking, so what is the problem? Or what is the issue there? Or who moves things there at the time when people don't want things to be moved? But I want to say this. We are also dealing with a generational issue. Because leadership has been defined differently in these generations. What our fathers grew up knowing to be leadership is now different in this life. My children did not take maziwa ya Nyayo. I mean, I grew up with President Moi's milk, and I remember every Friday we used to have milk. And every time I tell my kids about having milk in school, they get perplexed. They wonder, what are you saying? Dad, what is it that you're saying?
Yeah.
My way of growing up is when my dad said something or my mom said something, it was final. It was the law.
It becomes a law.
You follow it, either you want it or you don't want it.
Daddy has said.
Either you do it or you do it. There is no, you can't do it. Daddy has said you do it. Today, I have a 13-year-old in the house, a teenager. Today, we can actually have a conversation with the mom, and we're having a disciplinary conversation. And this 13-year-old, my girl will come and tell me, Dad, I have an opinion, and I feel like I need to be part of and parcel of this conversation here. Kevin, today we can't move houses without her being in this conversation. Because, you know, her life is based around where we are. You know, she has friends, school, church. And so where are we moving? Where are we going? You know, how will that influence me? How will that make me to be? And so you realize the generational issues between the youth and also the elderly has become a big deal. And so when young people are told no, this generation can't take no for an answer. Or wait. They say that we want it now. And I understand where they're coming from. However, when we talk about home issues, then that is a trend. But when we jump the bridge and come to this other side of election and the country running and the civic, they're exercising actually their civic duty, which again is enshrined in the Constitution. That they need to account for their leaders. They need to be there for their leaders. So home leadership again, and the space of home doesn't actually change to be in this space in as much as it affects. But there is a trend going on here. When you see young people on the streets, they're coming to demand what is theirs. It's because they have seen that their leaders have failed them. They have seen that what they are saying and what the books that they read from do not connect. They have seen our elected leaders who the Constitution says they are there to represent us and to give us rights to freedom to expression, freedom to association, freedom to all these things. They're actually being limited and told do not do it. And they wonder, from what angle did we elect you to go and represent us to a level now where you're coming back to enslave us? And so you realize young people now are out there, including church.
Yes.
What we say and what the pastors are doing and what we found ourselves in is that this young generation begins to doubt even what our church leaders are saying. Yes. Because not more or a few who are living outside the written boundaries of the Word of God have actually messed up the whole system.
And when you talk about that, because you've mentioned something very important, that every generation defines leadership in a different way. And that also affects the transitioning, because now when it comes to succession in leadership, probably the person who is leaving is of a different generation and the person coming in is of different generation. Yes. But they both need to maintain the vision and purpose and the existence of that church, if it is a church or an organization. So how do you even bring that when it comes to transitioning and succession in leadership?
We need to understand, Kevin, that one of the biggest hurdles is for the elderly to understand the young people. They have grown up in different eras, for that matter. They have grown up in different challenges. We grew up. I got my phone when I was when I was in my fourth form 4. As I'm talking to you, my children and the firstborn has a phone, and because for them it's a requirement of life. It's like part of life, and so the life that I grew in and the life she's growing in are two different things. And so what I define leadership to be is obey without question. When we come to this generation, they define leadership as what you do is actually what we learn more probably than what you say. Or what I want now. You told me I have rights. Now I'm using these rights to ask for my inheritance. There is nothing as difficult as one of the biggest things we've come to handle here is something called transition. We have not understood it. It is still a mess in our lives, and it is causing havoc in church, in our government, in our nation, and even globally. Every day, people who buy phones and people who are always on the phone and they have become unsocial. We've left socialism of having tea. We've gone to be social on media. So, of course, social media and stuff. So it's easier for me to talk to you on Facebook rather than give you a call and first to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Now, generations might change, Kevin.
Yeah.
But principles of leadership don't change. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. What you're seeing today is not new. The scripture says there is nothing new under the sun. So there are spaces where generations rose up and the revolts have come up. We've seen so many, you know. And we need to understand that the older generation, which holds a bigger mileage of understanding, needs to understand the young generation. And most of the time is that space of not knowing when to introduce somebody to your loins to begin to walk with them. I look at Exodus when Moses introduced Joshua. Moses did not change the principles of God, but he changed the methods. So methods might change from generation to generation, but the principles remain the same.
Remain the same, so that the
honor,
vision
yes,
remains the same.
Honor God,
yeah.
Number one. Honor your parents. Don't kill. Don't steal. Don't covet your neighbor's property. They remain the same. But then the question is, if a generation sees the elderly do that, then it becomes a big deal. And so we need to understand that succession issue is now where the rift comes in.
That is great, and as we even come close to the end.
Yes.
They say great leaders also read, and so you are an author. Tell us about your books, even as we almost come to the end.
Well, I have I got a few books with me here. We have the first book I think I wrote was The Smoking Doctor. This book defines my story. I was a stammerer. I couldn't talk the way I'm talking today. So all my testimonies are here. I never used to do well in school, but class 8, I talked to the class. How I did it is all here.
Okay.
From henceforth till now, I've never looked back. So this talks about what every young professional needs to know. The second book I've written is The Church Planter Earpiece. I'm so passionate about planting churches and the youth to become pastors in that category. You know, pastors, young people can become senior pastors, you know that.
Yes.
And I wrote this because I wish I knew the things I faced before I planted a church. And so I was able to put this here because then young people and pastors are able to see and to learn a few things about church planting. Of course, the last one is Resource Your Vision. This is a book, Unleashing Your Potential in a Complex World. I once saw someone with a PhD on the streets looking for a job, and with a big placard and say, I have a PhD in biochemistry and stuff. And I looked at him and said, bro, you have the capacity to even start your own organizations.
Yeah.
Why are you looking to be employed? You see, the system that we went through taught us to study and look for jobs. But I believe God is calling us into a new system of creating jobs, so that the ones who are coming after us, then it's easier for us to raise them. So Resource Your Vision is a a book that talks about fundraising, that talks about how my wife and I have fundraised and run churches in line with the leadership God has called us to be.
That is great.
Thank you.
In 10 seconds, what is your parting shot on church leadership and governance?
Parting shot, I would love to say we need to understand leadership. We need to live and keep our word. What we say and what we do needs to align. Number 2 is we need to know when to exit the stage.
Yes.
To avoid a lot of rifts and understand that God has called us for such a time. And number 3, begin to raise a young man in your life. If you are, serving in any capacity, the day you're hired is the day you're fired. And the day you enter somewhere is the day then you need to begin to looking for an exit, because then we need to transition these young people and young people into a space where we are. And so sometimes I think we hold on to leadership as if it's our very own, but we need to know when God wants us to exit and to mentor others to come and lead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pastor.
Thank you.
That has been Pastor Moses Giri, the chair of EAK Youth Commission, also serves as a pastor at ICC. And this has been the Leader Show, courtesy of the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya. I've been your host, Lugalia Kelvin. Until next week, thank you.